Hi, and welcome to another installment of the Mind Management Mentors podcast. Today, we've got one of our coaches who we've already done a podcast with, but Rachel, a fabulous coach at Priority Mind Management. We absolutely love having you with the team. You came up with a really powerful concept. So first of all, introduce yourself, Rachel. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
Hi, I'm Rachel Goth. I'm a mind management coach. I'm originally from up north, as you might hear in my voice, originally from Liverpool, but I actually live down south in South London. I've been down here a long time. And as part of my coaching, as we all do, picked up many different things along the way. So a lot of what I do is hypnotherapy, EFT, mindfulness, bit of meditation, breathing exercises. So quite a few different tools in the belt to help people, mainly helping people with stress and anxiety, with how to
Listen,
deal with that.
there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of anxiety.
Well, I always say if you're not stressed or anxious about it, it's not a problem.
So it's a problem if you are stressed out, right? Yeah. There's a lot of stress. Absolutely fantastic. Before we go into the podcast, how was the move from the north to the south? How did that really make you feel, Rachel?
Well, family always asked us for years and years, would we go back? And it's always been a no because the weather is better to me.
So purely because of about a 200-mile range, the weather is better in London than Liverpool.
The weather's better, yeah, and I'm always getting teased about it as well because they think it's like a tropical. It's not quite tropical down here, but they think it's like a tropical land. And they never believe me when I tell them it's rain. If it's not raining up there and I say it's raining down here, they never believe me. They always think I'm making it up that we always have perfect weather, but it is better than.
That's lovely. Whereabouts in London are you from? You don't have to say don't give us your postcode, your address. But whereabouts in London are you from? Because there was something I noticed about London I was really surprised about when I went to London. But whereabouts in London are you from? Or
I'm
living?
down in Crystal Palace.
Ah, right, okay. Is that North London, South London, East,
South.
West?
It's South London.
Closer
South
to...
south of the river. So a lot of like true Londoners would say it's not actually London because anything
Right.
south of the river is not London.
So one of the things that I noticed about London was it was a lot more greener than I expected. There was a lot more open spaces. I just thought it was going to be built up. But when we went to London, and I've forgotten where we stayed, but I could see for miles there was loads of parks and loads of grass and loads of open spaces.
Yeah, well, I've got family members who've never come to visit me, and I think they imagine that I live in a concrete jungle of skyscrapers.
Yeah.
But actually, within like 10 minutes walk of here, there's a couple of different parks. We've
Yeah.
got some woods along the road. It's very green because that was my stipulation for if we were going to settle down and actually buy a place. There had to be greenery, otherwise it would just drive me mad. Because it's part of the mental well-being. If I can't go out and see something green, it drives me mad. And I need that.
So that's one of your but not a boundary, but that's one of your has to happen for mental well, because you've got green leaves behind you in a chair.
Yeah.
So you've created a I need to see green.
I find it really helpful to see trees and stuff. If it's just sort of like houses and houses as far as the eye can see, it's not for me. I mean, there are loads of houses around here, but there's trees and blossom on the trees, and you can just 5 minutes and you're in the park. So it makes a huge difference. But because you can do, all your mindfulness, watching the squirrels and the birds, and we have parakeets around here. They're all
Oh,
squawking and they're really colourful because they like green and red and
parakeets in London.
yeah.
Parrots.
Did you not know about those? They're quite famous because there's different rumors about how they came about. One rumor is like the set of a film. I can't remember the name of the film, like an old film that they used them on the film and then released them. And other rumors are, they were pets and things. But yeah, there's a lot of them in London, like a whole colony.
Wow. Love that. Absolutely. I didn't know that. That's fantastic. Oh, thank you very much for sharing. So that's one of your non-negotiables, is you've got to see greenery for your wellness. I love that. That's fantastic. Right. The premise of today's podcast, for mind management, is I'm going to let you share the title for this because Rachel, once you talked about it, I'm like, nailed it. Let's do a podcast about that because I think we're both on the same page. And a lot of coaches, especially when it comes to psychosensory coaching, which is a lot of the things that we do, psychosensory is such a powerful modality. It's important for people to know. So, what's the name of this podcast, Rachel, as brought to the table by yourself?
It's called Let's Not Talk About It.
Let's not talk about it. This is going against the grain of talk therapy. And when we're doing this, we're not saying that cognitive behavioral therapy doesn't work. I'm trained in cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a powerful modality. Trained in NLP, as we both are, powerful modalities. However, talking therapy has less possibilities than what we do with psychosensory coaching, psychosensory therapy, which is what we're going to talk about today. So let's talk about Rachel. Let's not talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Well, I find that talking about things can be helpful, and especially when like an event's, something has just happened, you're not going to not talk about it. You want to tell people about it, you want to feel understood and all of that. And for a lot of people, that something happens and you talk about it, get it off your chest, and that's it, it's over with. But for other people, if you're still talking about it like months and months later, where you find yourself, you may have found this with friends, or if you're having the same conversation like over and over again, but the person's not, they're not feeling better. They might feel better for that time that they're with you on unburdening themselves, but then you meet them a week later and they still feel the same way, and you're having that conversation again. If that's the case, then don't do it. Do something instead. Make a change, because at that point what you're doing is your brain is like a puzzle machine, and it sees the problem as a puzzle, so it keeps going and over it, and you're talking about it because you want to solve the puzzle.
Yep.
But if you've got to that point where you've been talking about it for a long time, then it's not something you can just think your way through and solve. And that might quite possibly be because it's to do with other people, and you can't change the other people, however much you talk about it, that's not going to change them. And it can also be that the problem's not on a logical level, like things
Yes.
like phobias. You intellectually know that that balloon is not going to kill you, that it's no threat, but you have that response, and you know that intellectually. But
Yep.
talking more, you can't talk yourself into feeling better about it, because it's not happening in the logical brain. That's not what it is.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Now, I know that your preferred method is EFT, emotional freedom tapping, and we're going to talk about that because we're going to talk about the power of EFT for the skills that you use, combined with hypnotherapy and mindfulness. I'm a big believer in EMDR therapy, brain spotting therapy, all on the lines of havening. I've found to be really powerful to get those results with clients. And this all comes under the psychosensory kind of modality or heading of therapies that can help. Now, when we're talking about psychosensory, we're talking about getting down to the fear centers, the central nervous system, the vagus nerve, polyvagal theory. Now, when people, you absolutely nailed it. You were bang on saying it can't get solved within the logical mind. It's kind of like how we have to bring it from the unconscious to the conscious so that we can make the difference and the changes in the conscious. But our feelings come from a place of the negative cognitions that we have about ourselves, how we were made to feel in that moment of fear. And that's not resolved within the logical mind. That is in the different part of the brain, which is what we're going to be talking about now, which the limbic system, the fear centers that we have. And I always talk about the monkey mind and the conversations that we have that keep us stuck. And you said it, you nailed it. People know they're not scared of a Lego brick. They're not scared of a balloon. It's the fear that they had and how they were made to feel when that happened. It'll be somewhere else in the five senses that we've learned along the way with the skills that we've got. So talk about why you think not talking about it and how you would resolve by not talking about it, Rachel.
Well, for an example, I had a client who came to me and she'd been in therapy for years. She actually came to me about doing her master's. She'd an older, mature student, and she'd gone back to do a master's, and she was feeling stuck and she just couldn't knuckle down to do it. So she came to me about that. And that once she came to me, I found out she'd been in therapy for a long time and lots of horrible things had happened, in her life, and like deaths of relatives and things like that. And we did one. She was really keen to like this, I need to see a results in one session. Something's got to happen. I need to know that this is going to be something useful. And I was like, I can't guarantee what's going to happen, but let's have a go. So I did hypnotherapy with her. And at the end of the session, she was actually crying like tears of joy because she didn't realize she could be happy, because she'd spent many years going to see someone on a regular basis talking about everything that had, upset her in life and that brought her down and made her feel bad. And just within that, probably it was about 20 minutes of the session, I took her to another place that was always there. It's like those other things were always within her, those other emotions, those other memories, but she'd been trained over years to just focus on everything that upset her. So it widened her perspective and showed her that she could be happy and she didn't have to stay stuck in those things. And within hypnosis, we resolved some things. She said, made her peace with something, with some situations. And then we had a few more sessions as well, and she was able to move on and do her master's. And then sometime later, after I'd finished working with her, she actually sent me a picture of herself in a mortarboard, and she'd graduated, and she was really happy with what we'd done, and she already had plans for what she was going to do next, because she wasn't stuck anymore in the past, and she was looking at the future and ready to move on to bigger and better things.
Stuck in the past. That's where depression lies for a lot of people. That I think a lot of people don't understand, that when we're stuck focusing on the problems, we all have problems. Myself, yourself, everybody has problems. We often forget the power of shifting focus for, I know bad stuff's gone wrong. Let's look for a gift. And I've done this with clients, especially from a positive intelligence, emotional intelligence kind of aspect, is let's look for a gift that horribleness has given you. Well, something wouldn't have happened positive because of that negative. It's always about having people move from the negative to the positive so that they can start moving forward. And that is absolutely right. As a mind management coach, we always start. Why is it clients get stuck in those feelings and those emotions of negative? Because it's constant. For a lot of people, it's constant. Rachel, why do you think we get stuck? Or why do clients get stuck not realizing actually we can find that positive somewhere else? Why is it we get stuck?
I think it's a couple of things. So when it's been a huge thing that's happened, like a big emotional thing, all this sort of chemicals and things rushing around your body at that moment in time, your memory doesn't get processed. The same as like PTSD, it doesn't get processed and put back where it should go. So it's always there, really present, and it doesn't take very much to, jump you back into that memory. So I think that's one aspect. But with other things, it is that like natural tendency for us to want to solve puzzles.
Yeah.
So it's that unresolved nature of things, like maybe you've got a problem with a certain person, but you
Why?
can't you can't, you feel stuck, and it's like, why are they like that? How can I make them not be like that? And your brain keeps going on it, and like when you wake up in the night, you're still thinking about it because you've opened you've opened that gate to the puzzle. So your brain is like, okay, she wants me to solve this puzzle then. And it just goes round and around and around and around until you like focus it, give it some sort of closure and focus it somewhere else.
Yeah. It's the question why, isn't it? It's why is this person annoying me? Why is this gone wrong? Why is it, it's the I know when I know we both do this, but working with clients, it's like, let's not ask why, let's ask what we can do to resolve. Because your brain, you are 100%, your brain has to answer the questions that you ask. So if you're asking why questions, a very common question for a lot of people is, why do I feel like this? Or why did this go wrong? Your brain, or monkey mind, as I like to call it, will answer because you're an idiot, because you failed when you were 4, because you failed because your mum told you this when you were 6, because your dad said this when you were 17. So you've got all these answers that your brain's looking for. It throws these negative answers towards you when we're going through that, and you're going, oh, is that the answer? Or it could be this, or it could be this. So we get stuck in overthinking. We get stuck in that traumatic experiencing that we're going through. And if you change, this is what we do with coaching, which is one of the most powerful things. What can we do to make this go away? Well, I could do this. Right now, we've got 3 solutions. Ask what instead of why. You have to ask better questions for the brain. You've got to ask better questions. Now, when it comes to not talking about it, tell about the people that's listening to this about the power that you found with EFT and how that helps resolve a lot of people with the things that they go through.
Well, EFT is great because I'm saying let's not talk about it, but I'm not saying let's, be all happy clappy and pretend everything's fine.
Correct?
That can, that can be bad too. That's when if you go to America and you see the people that open doors for you in shops and they have that like plastic grin and you're wondering what's actually going on behind there when everyone's pretending they're having a fantastic time all the time. So we're not, we don't want to do that either. And that's the thing with like positive affirmations. If you believe it to a degree already, that's great. But if you don't believe it at all and you're saying, I'm wonderful and today is fantastic and things like that, actually makes you feel worse because on top of everything else, you're lying to yourself, which feels really uncomfortable and wrong. So with tapping, what we do is you start with the negative, like where you are right now, and we tap on that because the tapping points, they're the same as the points for acupuncture.
Yeah.
And they in Chinese medicine you were saying meridians and energy points, but they're coming to understand that it basically corresponds with the nervous system. So you're actually stimulating your nerves. And some of those points will be the vagus nerve as well, because
Yeah.
as you've said before and things, could it wanders
It's the wandering
all over
nerve.
the place. Yeah. So you're stimulating those nervous points. Sort of, I would say it's kind of like giving your nervous system a jump start, but in a gentle way. So as you're talking through, oh, you would say even though as well to give yourself a little bit of distance on the whatever it is. So even though this has happened, I'm okay. You would say something like that, whatever the
Yeah.
issue is, and you would start tapping and tap through all the points. So what you're doing is you're not denying that's how you feel
Yeah.
in that moment, but you're already beginning to change the relationship, the connection between that, whether you're talking about thought or feeling, memory, whatever it is, and your body going into, fight or flight.
Yeah.
Because you're correcting that as you go along. You're relieving the stress, bringing your nervous system back into the parasympathetic
Yeah.
as you're talking through, and you'll notice as you go, you just do rounds and rounds of it, talking about the same thing. I'm being very there's different things to it, but I'm trying to be like as simple as it can. You're basically just talking through the issue as you're tapping around, and you'll start to feel a bit different about it. Keep checking in with yourself. How do I feel now? And you might think, actually, something else popped into my head that it's not that. it's this
Yeah.
other thing, whatever. And you begin to make progress and start to let it go. And it can be, as little as 15 minutes. It depends.
Mm-hmm.
It depends what it is. And you can use it for like issues, like I've taught it to police before to privately resolve things that they didn't want to,
Yeah.
share with me, sort of trauma from past things that they've experienced, and they found it a little bit unbelievable that it's worked. It was like, well, maybe it was that, but they they've done it, and they've let go of this sort of like baggage that they've been carrying around for
And
years.
what it is when we're working with clients, and it's something that I always talk about when I'm doing training and coaching with businesses and things like that, is we're scared to go back to the pain that's been created within our lives. So there's an avoidance. People avoid, and one of the most powerful things that you can do is you've got to feel it to heal it. And to heal it, you will feel it, but you'll feel amazing. All right. Now, when we're talking to clients about the timeline of trauma, of the disturbance, some people will say it's trauma, some people just say bad times in our life. It's how we identify it. But it's one of those things that once we get back to that keystone memory, or the keystone memory that we believe it is, then we can work on that. Then something else might pop up. But you can keep resetting the nervous system, the vagus nerve, and all come from the limbic system that creates these the autonomic nervous system, which it just keeps firing off this dysregulation. So we have a dysregulated nervous system. And whenever that's dysregulated and not fully connected and made the form, it keeps breaking the loop. So we get the triggers, we keep getting triggered. And because we are meaning-making machines, Rachel, as well you know, is that we keep creating a meaning and a story. Why do I feel like this? Oh, because this. So yes, it does connect up to the brain with the questions that we ask. But if we don't go and speak to a professional or somebody with your skills, Rachel, then it does become this, well, if I've struggled with this for 20 years, how can Rachel resolve it in 45 minutes? Well, because Rachel's extremely skilled at what she does with the many modalities that you have. So for anyone that's listening right now and thinking, oh, I don't want to talk about it, because brain spotting, I know you're doing the brain spotting course. Brain spotting, there's very minimal talking about it. You just have to be aware about what you're thinking, and we're going to look for the emotional sensation within the eyes and the connections it makes within the brain. So there's actually not a lot of talking with brain spotting and somatic experiencing. It's allowing you to go into your body, feel where the dysregulation is, and allow your body to re-heal, complete the circuit so that you won't get triggered. So when you do say it's not, when someone comes to you and say, well, actually, can you really resolve it in 45 minutes, Rachel? What's your reply to that?
Well, I'd reply with an example.
Yeah.
That I had somebody come to me with panic attacks. They
Yep.
actually came because they were worried about work, because they couldn't be the same person they were before at work, because they were getting triggered. They were having to pull over the car because they'd feel the panic would just go whoosh while they were driving along, or someone would say something at work. And they were fully aware how it had happened. They knew what the incident was. It was a specific thing that had happened, and they knew that. And everything had actually turned out fine with this incident. It had been traumatic, but the result had been fine. But it was that what if question in their head. They felt like they were so close that things could have gone, drastically wrong. What if? And that was stuck in their heads, and they knew logically that everything was fine. And they were skeptical about, how are you going to help me? What we're going to do? Is this going to work? So in hypnotherapy, we reprocessed is a good word. We
Yep.
reprocessed that memory of the time.
Yep.
And within that hour, it was back in the past where it should be. And he didn't have another panic attack. And he did come back for a second session, but that was because the first session had blown his mind, and he came back to be like, how did that work? What did
Yeah.
you do?
I remember working with one gentleman, and we did a reprocessing of a memory. And he'd been in therapy, he'd been in counseling, and he went, Cuddy, I'm only coming here because I've heard you say that you can resolve trauma in 45 minutes. And I'm like, if you're receptive to it, yes. I said, there's no guarantees. We always say that there's no guarantees, but if you're receptive to it, yes. So we went through the process and I just saw his face. It was like he'd had a stroke because half the blood left half of his face. And he was like, what? Why have you done that in 45 minutes? And yet I've been in therapy for 4 years. I've done counseling for all these. Why did they not say that to me? I said, everyone's got different trainings. I have people come to me and say, oh, I want that 45-minute resolve. And they don't get it because they're not ready to relinquish it. We can't get them down to the pain point. If you're avoiding, and especially when you're working with clients, sometimes they'll come with that keystone memory, but it's not actually the one. It's the one that they thought that was causing them the problem. It's not until we get down to the root belief and the root event that we can resolve. But that's why people have to still come back. I think I do 5-6 sessions with clients we've got longer coaching packages and things like that as well. So yeah, that's the reason it can get resolved quickly, but then you want the follow-up just to make sure and check in with, we've noticed that we've resolved this. How did that change your reactions to this? How did you change your reactions to that? Oh my God, this doesn't bother me anymore. This doesn't bother me anymore. And it's all because, and I think one of the most powerful things, Rachel, and I know you'll agree with this, is if you change you and realize it's you that needs to change, not everything around you that's triggering you, your life becomes a lot easier. It becomes a place of, oh, I just need to work on me, and these other 100 things that bother me won't bother me anymore. Because we move away from blaming and we move into accountability. And the second you move away from blaming and you move into accountability, it's a game changer for people, for clients, for understanding there's a gift in everything. And that's something that's the power of mind management, EFT, psychosensory coaching and things like that. And that's why you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
Well, that's it. When you come into someone like us, we only need the headlines. We don't need like the nitty gritty whole story. And often, that's kind of like gets in the way a lot of the time for people. The story. We really just need like the headlines, and then and then let's do it. So if it's something really painful or whatever, don't think that you've got to go and like rake over every tiny detail of it and tell it to someone else, because you don't need to do that.
And I think the power with brain spotting is you can even have that open session where just think about the problem that you want to resolve, and let's look for where that's stored, and let's use the eyes so that we can reprocess the memories. Because EMDR is the bilateral stimulation. Brain spotting is that let's move the eyes to where they need to move to get that resolve. And that's a really powerful thing, because your eyes are connected right into the prefrontal cortex and to the limbic system. And that connection helps, because with the brain spotting, you've got trauma presents in so many different places around the body. It's not just in one part. It can be stored anywhere, depending on the nervous system. The vagus nerve, the polyvagal theory is absolutely fantastic as well. So these are all powerful concepts. So to wrap up, Rachel, why should somebody come and see you and not talk about it?
Well, they should come and see me if they don't want to talk about it.
Correct.
And if they want to get into action and they want to do something to make a change and take control themselves and take away methods as well that they can use themselves.
Fantastic. I thought it was great that you'd work with a police officer, because I know a lot of police officers go through things. I know I'm going to be working the fire service very shortly. And these are all powerful kind of areas in life where you're going to be more susceptible to trauma if you don't learn how to manage it, because your fear-based, your limbic system pikes up. It becomes extremely aware when there's a sense of fear. And being able to manage and understand that, especially for firemen and policemen, is a really powerful, because those cognitions, those negative cognitions of not good enough, failure, all these labels that we create for ourselves get stuck. within our DNA, within our with our neurons, within our body, within our skin cells. It becomes part of who we are. And until we release that with mind management, psychosensory coaching, EFT, havening, hypnotherapy, there's so many great solutions out there. The one thing I will say is you don't need to talk about it, which is absolutely correct. And if you do want to talk about it, you've got a double whammy, more powerful modalities that we can help with, especially yourself, Rachel. Would you agree?
Yeah. If you're getting benefit out of talking about it, absolutely talk about it.
Perfect.
But
We'd love
just don't
that.
get stuck talking about it and not making any progress.
You know, there's the old adage of, I remember I used to do talks on cruise ships, and I used to say I meet people that will come and tell me a problem. And then 2 weeks later I'll see them and they'll say, "Oh, I've still got the same problem." And I'm like, at what point? I'll see them 6 months later and I'll hear the same conversation, exactly like you talked about. And I'm like, at what point are you going to let it go? There has to be a point. It's caused you pain. I get it. I understand it. But at some point, you want to let it go, because if not, we start feeding into our emotional needs, that our story starts giving us a sense of who we are, and it starts feeding a connection of, we get love, recognition from telling that story, and it keeps us stuck within depression. And I think this is something that people should be really aware of, that is the cuddle chemical, oxytocin and dopamine, or more oxytocin. Oxytocin is the cuddle chemical, that when you give yourself a hug or you get a hug from someone, you get oxytocin. Now, when we talk about our problem and we keep talking about our problem in a public forum, somebody will come over to you and go, "Oh, I'm really sorry that you've had to go through that." Someone touches you, hugs you, you create oxytocin. So we start creating a happiness chemical that's attached to depression. So we keep stuck in a depression because that story and that feeding creates oxytocin. So depression creates happiness chemical, not actually happiness. And then we wonder why we get stuck, right?
Yeah.
And that's something really powerful for anybody to take away from this, is sometimes you don't need to talk about it, but we have to let it go. And that's the power of mind management, working with somebody like Rachel to be able to get people moving forward. Is there anything else you want to share, Rachel?
Well, if anybody lives in South London, I do have an introduction to EFT coming up in Hayes in June.
Fantastic.
If anybody wants to, contact me about that.
Is that face to face? Is that in a room, or is that online?
Well, that's face to face actually, but at the moment I'm in the middle of running a 6-week Let's Not Talk About It course, which I will be running again. And that is all about sharing different techniques each week, so that you've got tools that you can use. So even if you're not ready at the moment to go and work with someone on something, you can get started using tools at home yourself to start shifting you, get you moving.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I love it. As always, if it's in the mind, it can be managed. And I will say it from me, big love from Cuddy. Thank you very much for listening to the Mind Management podcasts. Rachel, words of wisdom. How do you want to say goodbye?
Just thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks, Cuddy, for the opportunity. And just remember, you don't have to talk about things if you don't want to.
Perfect. Big love from Cuddy. Big love from Rachel. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Mind Management Mentors podcast.